Hello, I'm Chai Hofilenia. Welcome to Rappler Talk. Pope Francis is known to be a revolutionary who has altered expectations of the Catholic Church, committed to a simple lifestyle and an advocacy for climate change and poverty reduction. He is both a trailblazer and a proponent of the fundamentals of Catholicism. How will this papal visit influence the Philippines, the biggest Catholic country in Asia? Joining us now is Cardinal Orlando Quevedo. Good morning. Good morning, Cardinal.
Good morning to you too.
Thank you for coming over and visiting us.
Thank you for the invitation.
We're very honored to have you. Of course, we know that Pope Francis is coming and people are excited. What do you think is the real significance of this papal visit? We've had previous visits in the past.
I think one of the most important things that the Pope will provide the Philippines is that for many Filipinos, Rome is very far. And so he brings the Church of Rome and the Universal Church to our local church in Mindanao. And we get a feeling of who the Holy Father is, who leads the billions of Catholics in the world. And we see him, the Vicar of Christ becomes a face, not just a name, an abstract name, but becomes a concrete face. And this face of Pope Francis is something special.
You were bishops once, and he was a bishop also before. And I know that you know each other personally. What do you remember about him?
Well, we worked together in Rome in what is called the Ordinary Council of the Secretariat of the Synod of Bishops. He was elected as a member of the Synod Secretariat in 2001. He was a new cardinal, and I was also elected to that council of 15 from Asia. And my first thing about him is that he was very simple, affable, approachable, and coffee breaks I would gravitate towards him. Yeah. He was one of 2 Jesuit cardinals in that group of 15. And since I am also, I studied with the Jesuits for 5 years, I would go to 2 of them. But the one whom I liked very much was Cardinal Bergoglio.
Why?
First, because he's just simply welcoming.
Is he a funny man? Is he fun to be with?
No, he's quite spoken. And I would take my coffee. He speaks a little English. I speak a little Spanish, and in between are smiles. All that. And that every coffee break, I would go towards him. So, and we didn't exchange too many ideas, but we just spent the coffee break, a few minutes of it, just talking a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of English, but things in general.
Back then, did you ever imagine or think that he would
become
Pope?
I never thought that he would become the Pope. But if by hindsight, looking at him, here is a simple shepherd, like the simple fisherman in the Gospels. Here he is a simple man. He doesn't go for the limelight. He has a low profile, but people are drawn to him simply by his affability, his simplicity, his welcoming smile. And the second impression, a story about him was, that was 2001 to 2005. We worked together in Rome, in this council. And then when he appointed me cardinal, it was a complete surprise to me. But then I went to Rome for the consistory.
You were appointed cardinal, yes. It was your anniversary yesterday?
The appointment was yesterday, yes. January 12th. Okay. The appointment was yesterday. So when I went there to Rome to what they call receive the red hat, but I like the word to be created a cardinal, because the word creation is from nothing. Yeah. I was wondering if he would remember me from that 2005. And when he passed through the door, I was with Cardinal Tagle. He passed through the door, And he saw me, and Cardinal Tagle was trying to introduce me to him. But then he saw me and said, "Oh, Quevedo, Quevedo." Oh,
He remembered.
He remembered me. But then during the coffee break, he also approached me and said, and to my embarrassment, at the hearing of cardinals, was having my coffee, and he said, "Il grande Quevedo, il grande Quevedo," and I thought that was a great sense of humor. The big Quevedo, the big Quevedo. Although Il Grande is a different type.
And what did you call him? Did you call him Bergoglio?
No, no. I always, Your Eminence, that was my calling him when he was a cardinal, and Holy Father. Holy Father, he says.
You come from Mindanao.
Yes.
And well, in Mindanao, there's a lot of conflict, and peace is a concern, and the Vatican is all the more. It would seem to be very, very distant. What do you think would the significance of this visit be to Mindanao?
Oh, there's a lot of expectation with regard to the visit of the Holy Father because of his visit to Israel and Palestine. They read about him. They saw his pictures with the two leaders in Palestine and in Israel, and they saw him, and they know that he had visited Palestine and saw the sufferings in Palestine, and they saw him go to this big wall that was built by Israel to separate the Palestinians. He went. I think it was not in the script. He went down and went to visit.
He's a very spontaneous pope.
Spontaneous pope. And so because of that, many of the leaders of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front wanted him to visit Cotabato.
Would you have wanted him to come?
Oh yes, yes. And the MILF, in fact, the Chairman Murad sent a letter of invitation through
When
me.
was the letter sent?
Maybe a month ago. Yeah. And I endorsed it. I wrote a cover letter and sent it to the nuncio, and the nuncio sent it, I'm sure, to Rome. But when the visiting team of Vatican officials came, I was told that there is just simply no time to go to.
Sayang.
Yeah. Well, sayang, but I understand. I understand that his visit was for mainly for Tacloban, Yolanda victims, and I said there are also victims here from Sandong, Pablo.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the Zamboanga siege and the war, the intermittent rebellion that has cost 150,000 lives in the past few decades. But I understand that he had no time for it. But he is very interested.
Maybe in the future.
Also in the past, when I received the red hat, people were wondering why I seemed to have spent more time with him, kneeling before him, and he was whispering to me. And there were two messages that were very important. He said, I will pray for peace in Mindanao. And I said, I will pray for harmonious relations between Christians and Muslims in Mindanao. And it did not come from me. So he probably was briefed about where I'm coming from and what's the problem. So that was his message when and people wondered why he spent a few more seconds longer with me. So he knows Mindanao. He knows the problems of Mindanao. I suppose that's part of the nuncio's job, to inform the Pope about things happening in the country.
Has his message, how has his teachings or his pronouncements affected the church in Mindanao?
I think there are two important messages that are felt by bishops and the church. And the Muslims, of course, his message of peace and dialogue, interreligious dialogue. But for the church in Mindanao, his emphasis is the vision of becoming a church of the poor. And that is true for the Mindanao Church. And the vision of the Mindanao Sulu Pastoral Conference is the vision of a church that is a church of the poor. And we have been trying to do that through basic ecclesial communities. And his exhortation, Evangelii Gaudium, his first, I think, is a program for his pontificate.
Evangelii Gaudium
Evangelii Gaudium means the joy of the gospel, the joy of the gospel. It is his first apostolic exhortation, and it is remarkable in many things. But the theology of it seems as though here is a footnote in Western theology, Church of the Poor, an option for the poor, and the popes have talked about it in passing, but he develops it at length in this Evangelii Gaudium. And he puts that footnote in Western theology on center stage in Catholic doctrine, and develops it, elaborates it, and his vision of a church of the poor for the poor.
And in this particular document, he mentions the Philippines.
Yes.
How did that happen?
It is on the environment. That is one of his interests is climate change, and how our faith should lead us to either reduce global warming by simple things at all. But he quoted the planet and our own Philippines as full of God's creation, the beauty of God's creation, and he quotes our pastoral letter on what is happening to our beautiful land. And the very first pastoral letter, I think, that any bishops' conference in the world wrote about the environment, way back in the 19th.
And it found its way
there, yeah. And it's another remarkable thing too. He does not only quote from papal documents, Vatican II documents, and he quotes from various episcopal conferences in Africa, in South America. Naturally, there are some more quotes from South America because of his work there.
You mentioned something about his teachings filtering down to the church, but I think some Catholics who have turned away from the church say that there are some inconsistencies between what the church preaches and teaches and what they see in their own priests, in their own churches.
Right.
What needs to be done to make the faith a little more concrete and a little more relevant?
He has his own measures, and his measure is that of profound conversion. Profound conversion, the Greek word metanoia, is a deep conversion of mind and heart. And that is what the bishops of the Philippines have been trying to say with regard to our own vision in the Plenary Council of the Philippines. To be a church of the poor in the Philippines, we need profound conversion, not only of structures, but of hearts and minds. And the key to renewal, to becoming a church of the poor, is the clergy. And that's already in PCP 1991. 25 years from now, PCP 2 will still be a document that is not very much implemented. Profound conversion, to be simple.
So do we wait for that conversion to happen? Because, like, again, there would be critics of the church would say that yes, we hear about love for the poor, caring for the poor, but when we look at the lifestyles of some of our bishops and some of our church leaders, we don't see that.
That's really sad. I find it the most formidable component of the vision of church in the Philippines. I have always said in my writings and in talks is to become a church of the poor. While our institutions, many institutions, church institutions, religious institutions, are rich. And I say the only way to redeem those riches is to place them at the service of God's kingdom. at the service of poor and social justice. We need religious institutions to be very good, giving good Catholic education, for instance. We need that, and we need money. But the conversion towards a church of the poor should also begin with the students and the faculty and the clergy teaching there. Should be an example of what.
Do you feel that the church has become more distant from the youth?
No, I think it has become, at least for Mindanao, it has become closer to the youth. In the basic ecclesial communities, young people are the vanguards of change. In Mindanao, they are catechists, they are lay leaders, they are kaabags, they are young people. They are not only the future of the church in Mindanao, they are the present. So there is much more connection between church and young people in Mindanao that I see. I cannot make any judgment in the rest of the Philippines, but in Mindanao I see a great connection between young people. And the thing that needs to change, I think, is to be able to talk the language of the young.
Yes.
The language of the young is digital language.
Correct.
Technology.
On Facebook, on Twitter.
Facebook and Twitter.
140 characters.
Yes. I was said a family example is that can you copy this CD? Yes, we will burn it, Bishop. I said, no, please do not burn because I need a copy. Your language pala is burned. So we need to use the language of the young people and of today's age, the digital age. But to do so, we need not be artificial, about it. We speak from the heart, and to communicate that, we need to speak the language of the audience. Yeah.
We have a question from social media, speaking about social media. This is from Jasper Arcalas. How does the Philippine Church react to the family issues discussed during the Synod of Bishops in the last year?
The Synod of Bishops was a special synod. More of the same. The main synod will be this October. The Synod of Bishops was a preparation for, and what is important is that there was a lot of, I think, a media misrepresentation of the general thing that took place.
Yeah.
And one of the cardinals I know has already remarked that it is already, the media has presented the wrong position of the whole synod, but it is there. It is irretrievable. We need to do something more about it in the next synod. And Cardinal Tagle, in his own talk to a Filipino priest in the United States, did the same. He tried to clarify what happened in the synod. There were dissenting voices, but there was no, at the end, I think the Holy Father summarized it very nicely.
So, what exactly was the main point?
Well, the main point was that it seems that the Church was changing its doctrine on abortion, on contraception, on gay marriages, and so on and so forth. And even those who were with the Holy Father did not want to say that. They want to, given the doctrines of the Church that we cannot change, how do we show compassion for those in difficult marriages, in difficult relationships?
Yes.
Even if we know that they are in the wrong relationships, how do we show compassion to them? In the way that the Lord Jesus would show compassion to sinners. How do we do that? That is the issue. And some say, do not change the doctrine. And that is non-negotiable.
So very hard line.
Hard line, yeah. It is. It's not something that changes with the times. The doctrine of the Church or popular polls. It's from our own faith. and that will become the focus of the next synod in October on the family.
I see.
You see, compassion, mercy and compassion for those in great difficulties in the family. Families in great difficulties.
Because I think this is one of the difficulties of those who've turned away from the church, because they felt that they've been judged,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the church has become very, very exclusive rather than inclusive. But through the language of the Pope has changed things, and he has become a little more welcoming.
Very true. In official language, sometimes the Pope is harsh, but in pastoral practice, it's different. You know, my own training as a seminarian in moral theology was, this is the doctrine. When someone goes to confession to you with this problem, how do you approach that? Do you just say no, no, no? Or do you suggest something else that's more positive, that brings him close to the God's mercy? And that's different. Official language very often is harsh, and pastoral practice may be more generous and compassionate.
How would you compare the three popes that we've had? Benedict, Francis, and Pope Paul.
Well, you know, the Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, showed very strong spirituality and connection with people, especially young people.
This is John Paul.
John Paul II. But he was a conservative in doctrine, liberal in social justice and social issues. In Benedict is given sometimes an image of conservatism.
Yes.
You know? But one should realize that everything that Pope John Paul II wrote and published for the whole world went through the eye, under the eyes of Benedict as the prefect of the Congregation of Doctrine and Faith. So everything there that is written for the public by John Paul
got his approval.
Has his approval. You know? So he thought the same way, Pope John. Pope John Paul II was considered a philosopher. Ratzinger was called a theologian, but they worked together. And when the Pope Benedict became, he showed Pope John Paul II showed the heart of the church, and for me, Benedict showed the mind of the church.
Interesting.
The mind of the church, the reason. And then this Pope now we have is a combination of both. He's both a theologian. He also studied philosophy and he taught philosophy. He combines both. But the combination of heart and mind is something that the people can understand easily. Ratzinger's mind was brilliant. You know, I always thought that if I listened to him as though he is writing a book, he line on a logic sequencing, and it's just a matter of few words here and there. But Francis combines both of them, the heart and the mind, and the combination is simple. It comes out of his personality. And his mind thinks differently in the sense of high doctrine. He thinks about the situation, the pastoral situation. He came from South America. In South America, it was Church of the Poor and militancy in social human rights. Here, he does it. You know. Again, like Pope John, doctrine, conservative but in a new way, taking different angles of what I call a diamond of the doctrine of the church, and taking one facet of that diamond and emphasizing that for the church. And the heart, wow, is compassion for the poor.
He's revolutionizing things at the Vatican.
Yes, and it's, for me, his first apostolic exhortation, the joy of the gospel, is revolutionary. And right from the beginning, he said, we are a church that goes forth.
But I can imagine there would also be strong resistance.
Especially on the scientific, the economic part of that apostolic exhortation, because those who follow the dominant model of development, economic development in the world, is would say he's Marxist, he's socialist.
Yeah.
And that has been heard already, that criticism is being heard in North America, for instance, especially in the United States, where one TV commentator says he's simple Marxist. But no, the same language, the same teaching has been done by John Paul II in his social encyclicals, by Pope Benedict XVI in his World Day of Peace messages about the economic system in the world, globalization, and all that. And they were not so-called communists. But
They
here,
weren't tagged.
They were not tagged. But here, because it comes from South America with its liberation theology, akala nila, ito. But that is not liberation theology, that is Marxist. Pope Benedict condemned a liberation theology that is Marxist in form and in content and in spirit. But he himself said, Benedict XVI said, as Ratzinger said, all theology should be liberating. And this is what the theology of Pope Francis with regard to the economic system is, a liberating type of theology, not ideology, not Marxist.
Do you see the Vatican shifting also from being Eurocentric to, well, starting to look at Asia, the developing countries, and even Africa?
Very much so, very much so. Again, we go back to that Joy of the Gospel Apostolic Exhortation. For me, it's a remarkable document, revolutionary. It takes, usually popes quote from their own writings, or from Vatican II documents, or from church fathers. But here, Pope Francis in Joy of the Gospel quotes from various episcopal conferences. Like the Philippines, it was a quote from one of our pastoral letters. And others, it would be a quote from Medellin in South America, from Pueblos, and so on and so forth. Africa, he quotes from different Indian Bishops' Conference from India, our own South India, South Asian country. They quoted there, and it's universal type. He expands the thinking of the papacy towards all this.
It's an exciting time for you to be a cardinal.
Very much so, yeah.
During his papacy.
And I'm happy that I'm part of that. I have a titular church in Rome. A cardinal is supposed to help the Pope govern the church in a universal church.
Yeah.
But if you have a church in Rome, I understand that to mean that titular church is given to you by the Pope to let you be part of the governance of the Diocese of Rome, of which he is the bishop. I do not know anything. It's just titular church, like honorary, but that's I think my understanding is that symbol of being part.
He will be arriving here on Thursday. The first time you meet him, what would you tell him?
If I have a chance at all, because I shall be meeting him at the airport. That's my assignment, to be one of the people meeting him at the airport. If I have a chance, I said, thank you for coming.
And please go to Mindanao.
No, I would say, he already knows that. I pray that you pray. I pray that in your messages you will mention peace and dialogue with Muslims. That's all. And then we pray for you. And it's sort of, I haven't really thought about what to say. But that would be my main message, I think, to him, if I were to ask him.
Thank you very much, Cardinal Quevedo.
Yes, thank you very much.
We've
too.
been talking to Cardinal Orlando Quevedo about the influence of Pope Francis in the Philippines. For more stories on his visit to the country, visit Rappler's microsite #PopeFrancisPH. I'm Chai Hofelenia. Thank you for watching.